Part 16. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 151. The coffin-carrying team continues to move forward. After crossing the bridge, the road becomes bumpy. The speed of the coffin-carrying team also slowed down, especially when passing a short section of uphill road. The coffin-bearing men's wheezing sounds were like an old engine working hard. We stumbled up to the mountainside, and Painted Skin Ghost stopped, pointed to a place and said, "That's the destination of our trip." I looked in the direction Painted Skin Ghost pointed. The place he was pointing to was a valley. The valley in the night was originally desolate and cold, like a barren Gobi desert. The mountains on both sides of the valley are covered with flowers and lush trees. Only the thick white mist lingering above the valley looks very strange. I looked up at the sky, surrounded by stars and gathering moonlight, and the valley surrounded by stars and moonlight pointed to it. Painted Skin Ghost continued, "There is a village in the valley, and the entrance to the ancient tomb is in that village." Village? Do people really live in this ghostly place? After saying these words, Painted Skin Ghost continued to move forward, and we followed closely behind. The further you go, the more bumpy and difficult the mountain road becomes. There are overgrown weeds on both sides of the road. The moonlight shines like water on the mountain, and the shadows of the branches reflected on the ground are like evil ghosts. When the wind blows, these evil ghosts appear. He started to show his teeth and claws. Soon, we started to go downhill, and then we reached the flat ground. After passing through a small forest, the white mist appeared in front of me. This white mist is like a barrier, blocking our progress. I walked into it holding an oil lamp and shouted to the people behind me, "Everyone, follow closely. Don't fall behind." The fog here is so thick that even the oil lamp in my hand can only illuminate a small area. Fortunately, I can see the way. The surroundings were eerily quiet, and we could only hear the footsteps of a few of us and the heavy breathing of the coffin maker. At this moment, white mist surged like flowing water. My expression froze, something was approaching. Otherwise it would be impossible to induce the flow of white mist. Swish swish. The sound of brushing bushes could be heard in the white mist. I took out the fear from behind and walked, paying careful attention to the abnormalities around me. Hizzy. This is, the rat is barking. And there are a lot of them. Wu 11 came to my side and whispered, "Be careful, something is wrong here." Nonsense. If it's right, there won't be so many mice. At this moment, a dark shadow suddenly flashed in front of my eyes. Before I could react, Wu 11 had already taken action. He dodged and stood in front of me, then grabbed the black shadow in his hands. I picked up the oil lamp and looked at it. It turned out to be a snake. The snake twisted its slender body restlessly in Wu 11's hands, opened its bloody mouth, and grinned at me. Because Wu 11 is wearing a ghost mask, I can't see clearly his expression at the moment, but I can judge his mood at the moment through his voice. "Something's wrong, there's something wrong with the snake." His words were full of doubts. "What's wrong?" I asked. Wu 11 replied, "Feel." After saying that, Wu 11 placed the snake on the oil lamp. With a whir, the weak flame of the oil lamp was like a fire dragon, spreading to the snake's body instantly. The snake was actually set on fire. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 152. Seeing the scene in front of us, Wu 11 and I exclaimed in unison, "It's tied with paper." That's right, this snake is made of paper. Otherwise, it would not be possible to be lit by an oil lamp. My first reaction was that Mr. Penn was nearby. Sure enough, he took action anyway. The two of us exclaimed, instantly attracting the attention of Ruohong and others. Ruohong stepped forward and asked, "What happened?" I pointed to the paper snake that had been burned to ashes on the ground. Ruohong's pretty face was instantly covered with a layer of frost. "Let's go quickly and get out of here," I said. The two nodded and we quickened our pace. As our pace quickened, the rustles and creaks around us grew closer. At this moment, Xia-11 exclaimed, instantly attracting all of our attention. I stopped and looked in the direction of Xia-11. I saw countless black shadows surging in the white mist, and they were so dense and penetrating. Ruohong quickly stretched out her hand to pull Xia-11 behind her, staring at the darkness in front of her with beautiful eyes. Suddenly, white mist surged, and a huge rat rushed out of the darkness. I swear, I have never seen such a big rat in my life. It's as big as an adult pig. Squeak. The giant rat opened its bloody mouth and bit Ruohong. Ruohong's skill was not limited either. He took off the long whip from his waist and with a wave of his right hand, tied up the rat's bloody mouth. Then he freed up his other hand and pulled Xia-11 away from the place. The giant rat rushed forward due to inertia. Wow! The bushes in front of the giant rat were all crushed. It was during this gap that I held the 9 layers of thunder in my hand, and the thunder and lightning flashed in my hand, making it look particularly bright in the dark night. I walked up to the giant mouse in one stride and slapped it down with one palm. Thunder and lightning exploded, and the giant rat roared. It broke away from the shackles of Ruohong's long whip, turned around, and stared at me with a pair of rat eyes. The 9 layers thunder dew caused a huge psychological shadow to this big rat. Its pair of rat eyes stared at me closely, looking at the thunder seal held in my right hand with fear in its eyes. While I was confronting the giant rat, countless small rats rushed out of the woods on both sides. There are so many of these little mice, and they are so dark, like a black tide. Wu-11 stepped in front of the 2 coffins and said to the coffin bearers, "Don't stop, keep moving forward." As he spoke, he took out a short knife from his waist and began to clean up the tide of rats. The big rat stared at me closely, his eyes full of evil. It just confronted me and didn't attack. At this moment, a cold and biting voice suddenly came to my ears. "I finally found you." The sound came from above. I raised my head and raised the oil lamp in my hand. The scene in front of me made me break out in a cold sweat. I saw a huge python coiled around a big tree next to me. The giant python actually spits out human words. Wrong. I looked carefully at the giant python in front of me. When I met its eyes, I instantly knew who it was. The origin of Qingyang Evil Star. This is the origin of the evil star that escaped from the sky coffin. I will never forget the look in his eyes. Vicious, cruel, vicious. The eyes he looked at me were full of greed. After waiting for so long, it finally appeared. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 153. Su Tianxian told me before. The origin of evil stars has soul but no form. When they exist alone, they are just a black shadow. Once it enters the human body, it will easily take over the person's body. And they will resurrect themselves as a result. However, if the evil star's origin wants to maintain its physical body, it must find someone with the corresponding fate. The origin of Qingyang Evil Star corresponds to the person who has the fate of Qingyang Star. Of course, it could also be a corpse. Su Tianxian also said that Qingyang Xing is like this at the moment, and the other 8 evil spirits are not yet known. I stared at the giant python in front of me and said coldly, "The accounts for that day. It's just the right day to settle the accounts. As the saying goes, enemies are extremely jealous when they meet. All my relatives died because of him, this debt should be settled." As soon as these words came out, the giant python laughed strangely. "Ha ha ha. Do you think you can deal with me after just a few days of learning from that little girl? Are you too naive? In front of me, you will always be an ant. I can't deny what he said. I don't have the ability to kill him now, but I'm not going to kill him today. But to let Qin Jiangxing die? Let him be completely stunned. While I was talking to the giant python, countless small snakes rushed out of the darkness and attacked the coffin bearer. Upon seeing this, Ruohong protected the two coffins and Xia 11. The target of Qingyang Evil Star is Xia Jingming inside the coffin. Once he successfully seizes the body, the next target will be me. Because only a body suitable for his own body can he transfer my destiny to his body. I never knew what my destiny was. I have asked Su Tianqian before, but Su Tianqian only said that he had a special destiny and refused to tell me the truth. I didn't ask after that either. I have such an inseparable connection with the 9 evil stars. The spiritual tablet made with my birth date will confuse the Qingyang evil star and he will think that the person lying in the coffin is Xia Jingming. As long as he opens the coffin and enters it, he can use the soul-suppressing coffin to suppress it. It will be impossible to think of it by then. The giant python jumped up and attacked in the direction of the soul-suppressing coffin. The huge snake leaped in the air, causing strong winds to rustle the surrounding trees, and the white mist receded. "Get out of the way!" Wu 11 yelled at his fellow junior brother. Upon seeing this, several coffin bearers quickly lowered the coffin and fled the scene. They were not good at it either. Without the restraints of the coffin, they began to take action to deal with these rats and snakes. Because the speed of the giant python is simply too fast, I can't stop it at all, and even if I react, the big rat will stop it. This rat is huge and runs like a walking tank. Fortunately, his size limited his speed. I can also take it in my stride. The giant python landed on the soul-suppressing coffin impartially, and then the huge snake body wrapped around the soul-suppressing coffin. Wu 11 and Ruohong looked at each other, then looked at me not far away. I nodded slightly at them. The two instantly understood each other and took action one after another, pretending to stop him. I told 2 people about my plan before coming. The eyes of the 2 people just now were asking me whether this big python was the source of the evil star in the plan. In the eyes of Qingyang evil star Yun, the 2 people's attacks were child's play, scratching their itch. Therefore, both men were also laughed at by it. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanba. Chapter 154. Ha ha ha. You little kids. You want to touch me? It's still too early. The source of the evil star laughed arrogantly. I looked around, searching for Painted Skin Ghost. He had already gone hiding somewhere. I knew his purpose from the beginning. The mantis stalks the cicada and the oriole is behind. When we suppress the evil star holding the sheep in the soul-suppressing coffin, he will definitely attack suddenly on the road ahead. By then we will be on guard, and there is a chance that we can avoid the success of Painted Skin Ghost's plan. If the alert doesn't work, don't be afraid. After all, Su Tianqian is hiding in the dark. As long as the situation is not right, she will definitely take action. I pretended to rush forward to help, but was blocked by a giant rat. As a last resort, I could only fight with Jingxiao while fighting, approaching the soul-suppressing coffin. The Jingxiao peachwood sword itself contains the power of thunder, and it will cause unspeakable suffering when it cuts on the giant rat. The evil star Qingyang saw that we were in a hard fight. The source of the evil star once again laughed sinisterly. Just as he was about to open the coffin, he noticed Xia 11 behind Ruohong. A pair of snake eyes stared at Xia 11 closely, as if thinking about something. But after a while, Qingyang Evil Star changed his target. He used his huge snake body to open the lid of the soul coffin. Then he rolled up the coffin lid with the snake's tail and threw it aside. With a bang, the heavy coffin lid fell to the ground, stirring up a burst of dust. When he saw the situation inside the coffin, the snake's eyes showed surprise. Finally found it? The body of my dreams. As soon as he finished speaking, the giant python's body softened, and a mass of black energy emerged from the giant python's body. This is the origin of Qingyang Evil Star. As long as he can enter the substitute prepared by Su Tianqian, then the plan will be half successful. Everyone watched the scene in front of them with concentration. But just when the black energy was about to sink into the soul-suppressing coffin, an accident happened. Xia 11 screamed, and black energy instantly emerged from the coffin. I frowned. Oops. A little mouse appeared on Xia 11's shoulder, holding the life-hiding talisman in its mouth. Damn it! When did this mouse get into Xia 11's pocket? And he took out the life-hiding talisman with a purpose. This must be Mr. Pan's fault. It's impossible to guard against it. The black energy instantly changed its target and attacked Xia 11. Ruo Hong and Wu 11 reacted quickly and intervened to stop him, but their attacks were unable to harm the black energy at all. I picked up the 9 layers thunder technique and blasted away the giant rat in front of me. I took a few steps to reach Xia 11, but when I arrived, the black energy had already entered Xia 11's body. Oops. It's still a step too late. Xia 11's lowered eyes slowly raised, and her whole aura changed drastically. All kinds of ominous auras spread from him. She stretched out her hands, looked at her white little hands, and laughed crazily. It turns out, the person who truly has the destiny of Qingyang Star is actually this little girl. The descendant of Huapi. This body is exactly what I want. Descendants of painted skin. Xia 11 is a descendant of Huapi. What exactly is going on? Without allowing me to think about it carefully, Xia 11's beautiful eyes looked at me, her eyes full of ridicule. Lu Su, you are worthy of being his reincarnation. You are indeed smart. I was almost deceived by you. Qingyang Shaxing's words revealed too many mysteries. His descendant, and who is he? Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 155. My expression became more serious. The situation is now beyond my control. The evil star Qingyang has successfully entered the body, and it may be difficult to get it out. Xia 11 pressed towards me step by step, while all the rats and snakes around me retreated. He suppressed us in the sky coffin, but we robbed his limbs and 5 senses. But he never thought that many years later we would break out. Xia 11 said to me while walking towards me. Who he is, I don't know. But I already guessed who they were. That is the 9 evil stars. Xia 11 continued, and I will be the first person to completely seize your body. At that time, they will also bow to me and treat me as their king. Xia 11's aura is very powerful. Every step she takes and every word she speaks makes my heart tremble with the pressure she brings. I forced myself to calm down and think about how to deal with the current dilemma. Xia 11 pressed forward step by step, and suddenly shouted at Ruo Hong, Ruo Hong. Do it! Ruo Hong was startled, and a second later, the long whip in her hand was already swung out. The long whip came through the air, but Xia 11 was faster. She suddenly stretched out her hand and held Xia 11's long whip tightly. Little tricks. Before he finished speaking, Wu 11 shouted loudly, appeared next to Xia 11, and punched Xia 11 on the head. Xia 11 failed to care about her right side because she was dealing with Ruo Hong's sneak attack. Seeing that Wu 11's fist was about to hit Xia 11's head, she ducked sideways, but Wu 11's punch missed. I took advantage of this gap to activate my bloody hand. Scarlet blood spread down my right arm and soon covered the entire right arm. I came to Xia 11 in one stride. Xia 11 has not yet reacted to Wu 11's sneak attack. I directly penetrated Xia 11's chest with my bloody hand. Xia 11 looked shocked and turned around to look at me in surprise. She shouted in disbelief, "No. This is impossible. How could you master the soul-stealing blood hand in a short period of time?" I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and said, "Nothing is beyond my control, including how you die next." The bloody hand sank into Sia-11's body, and that familiar feeling came over again. I felt like I was holding something. I'm not sure whether what I caught is the soul of Qingyang Evil Star or the soul of Sia-11. I can only bet. If what I capture is the soul of Qingyang Evil Star, I can extract it and seal it in the soul-suppressing coffin. That was my intention from the beginning. The evil star Qingyang has just entered the body, and it will definitely take time to adapt to a strange body. And this time of adaptation is his period of weakness. He thought he was sure of victory, but he never thought that I had the trump card of bloody hands. I squeezed hard, and Sia-11 let out a piercing scream. I felt happy. It seemed that my bet was right. It was this scream that caused the rats and snakes that had retreated to attack me again. Ruo Hanjian quickly picked up the oil lamp on the ground and threw it towards the rats and snakes. With a bang, the fire instantly exploded among the snakes and rats. Fire shot into the sky, dispelling the surrounding darkness. "No. You can't do this." Sia-11 roared at me. I used all my strength to pull away from the evil star Qingyang. I slowly pulled the bloody hand out of Sia-11's body, and a wisp of black mist also came out. Just when I was trying my best to pull away from the soul of Qingyang Evil Star, the familiar pain hit me again. Damn it! There was unexpectedly a backlash of evil energy in such a short period of time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanba. Chapter 156. My body began to tremble uncontrollably, my brows were furrowed, I was breathing heavily, and a large amount of cold sweat slowly flowed from my forehead. Qinjiang Shaxing noticed my abnormality and began to struggle violently. As misfortunes never come singly, Sia-11 suddenly stretched out her white jade hands and strangled my neck fiercely. The force was so strong that I couldn't breathe normally. The feeling of suffocation and pain spread throughout my body, deep into my limbs and every cell. Even so, I dare not let go of my right hand. Once I let go, I will fall into a place of eternal destruction. My vision began to turn black and my ears continued to ring. Now I just rely on the obsession in my heart to survive. Just when I could no longer hold on, a warm current spread from the bottom of my heart, flowing through my limbs and reaching every part of my body. The 8-character blood evil has worked. All the discomfort in my body was swept away, and my expression became extremely determined again. I gritted my teeth and used all my strength to pull away the soul of Qingyang Evil Star. With the movements of my hands, the black energy was gradually pulled out of Sia-11's body. Sia-11's hands holding my neck gradually became limp. I shouted loudly and leaned back. Tear. There was the sound of tearing and breaking in the air. My body was empty and I fell backwards due to inertia. With a plop, I fell heavily to the ground. At the same moment, Sia-11's body went limp and she collapsed to the ground. The bloody hands grasped the black evil energy tightly and did not dare to relax at all. I struggled to stand up and rushed towards the soul coffin with staggering steps. The black evil energy kept struggling in my hands with great force, and I almost lost my grip several times. I can only strengthen the restraint of the bloody hands on it, even if the power of such black evil spirit should not be underestimated. Quick! Prepare to close the coffin. I yelled at the coffin bearers. Several coffin bearers hurriedly came to the lid of the soul-crushing coffin, and they worked together to lift it. I came to the soul-suppressing coffin and looked at the black evil spirit in my hand. The black evil spirit and the scarlet blood are intertwined, but they do not interfere with each other, and the black and red are distinct. My expression condensed, I raised my bloody hand and pressed hard towards my spiritual place. No. An unwilling roar came from the black evil aura. When my bloody hand touched the spiritual position, it was unobstructed and submerged into it. At the same moment, the coffin bearer placed the coffin lid at the end of the soul coffin. I let go of my bloody hand and quickly pulled it away, while the coffin bearers pushed the coffin lid with quick eyes and quick hands. There was a creaking and rubbing sound in the air. The coffin lid fitted the eaves of the soul-suppressing coffin, and the coffin was quickly sealed without leaving a single gap. Seeing this scene, my legs weakened and I collapsed on the ground, with the soul coffin behind me, breathing heavily. The scarlet blood on my right arm slowly sank into my skin, and returned to its original state after a while. At the moment when Qingyang Evil Star was sealed in the coffin, the surrounding rats and snakes instantly dissipated. The surroundings fell into a deathly silence, black flakes drifted in the wind, lingering in the forest, and the pungent smell of burnt paper dust filled the air. Ruo Hung and Wu 11 hurriedly came to my side and asked in unison, "Lu Su, are you okay?" "It's okay, I can't die." Ruo Hung knelt down, stretched out her hand, and gently pulled up my limp hands. She kept rubbing it, her movements were gentle, and her brows were full of distress. I smiled bitterly at her and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Ruo Hung said nothing, just looked at me distressedly. At this moment, Painted Skin Ghost slowly walked out of the darkness. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 157. My good nephew. You are so awesome. I looked at the fake smile on Painted Skin Ghost's face and was filled with anger. It's impossible to say that the paper mouse holding the life talisman in its mouth has nothing to do with him. It seems that Painted Skin Ghost and Mr. Pen are also intelligent. Although the anger surged in my heart, I wanted to dispel the Painted Skin Ghost's scruples about me. I still asked the Painted Skin Ghost with concern, "Second uncle, are you not injured?" The Painted Skin Ghost shook his head, glanced at the miserable situation around him, and said, "You are in poor health right now. Let's leave here as soon as possible and go to a deserted village not far away to recuperate." I nodded, and Wu 11 came to me and carried me on his back. Xia 11 was still in a coma, so Ruo Hung could only carry her. Just like that, we set off again. My head felt a little heavy, my limbs were weak, and I was almost comatose during the bumpy journey. I forced myself not to sleep. If I did, it would be hard to tell what would happen later. Wu 11's voice rang in my ears. "Lu Su, if you can't hold on any longer, just squint for a while. Even if something happens to you, you can't change it." What Wu 11 said makes sense. As soon as he finished speaking, I fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long it took, but I slowly opened my eyes, struggled to get up, and stretched out my hand to gently touch my swollen forehead. A little rest allowed my tired body and mind to relax, and it prevented me from being unable to move. I looked around and took in my surroundings. The mottled walls, dilapidated wooden windows, and the beams were covered with spotted mold. The cold night wind poured in through the gaps in the room, making a whining sound like a ghost crying or a wolf howling. Where is this place? With doubts, I stood up, pushed open the old and mottled wooden door and walked out. The courtyard is a desolate scene, with a full moon hanging high in the sky, reflecting the loneliness and dilapidation here. Two huge coffins were placed in the center of the courtyard. Wu 11 was leaning against the coffin wall to recharge his batteries. The other coffin bearers were squatting in the corner, smoking cigarettes. When he saw that I was awake, he stood up quickly and asked, "How do you feel?" I nodded and said, "It's okay." I didn't see Ruo Hung and Xia 11, and I felt a little confused, so I asked, "Where are Ruo Hung and Xia 11? Wu 11 told me that Xia 11 was resting in the next room, while Ruo Hung went out to check the situation. Painted Skin Ghost came out of another room. When he saw that I was safe and sound, a strange look flashed in his eyes. "Nephew, are you okay?" I nodded and asked, "Second uncle, where is the entrance to the ancient tomb you mentioned?" Painted Skin Ghost grinned and said, "Don't worry, I'll take you there right now." It was at this time that the door of the ancient house in the deserted village was pushed open, and Ruohong walked in with a solemn face. I quickly stepped forward to ask if I found anything unusual. Ruohong frowned and said to me, "It's very strange. This village is very strange. It is clearly a deserted village, but every household has its door locked and cannot be opened at all." She thought for a moment and said, "It just gives people a very weird feeling, as if there are people living in this village all the time. Since Ruohong said so, there must be something weird in this village. I'll wipe it." Suddenly, a coffin bearer squatting in the corner and smoking suddenly cursed. Several of us turned around together and asked, "What's going on?" The coffin bearer pointed at the wall and said with some disbelief, "This wall has a hole burned by a pipe." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 158. Got a hole burned? I quickly came to the wall and squatted down to take a closer look. I saw that a small hole had indeed been burned into the mottled wall. There were still some sparks flickering on the edge of the cave wall. Ruohong and I looked at each other, and we both saw panic in each other's eyes. The scene before us reminded both of us of the terrifying experience of riding on a paper car that day. Is everything here made of paper? To test my suspicion, I asked the coffin bearer who had just smoked for a match. With a click, the match was lit, the weak flame jumped up and down, and the air was filled with the smell of burning gunpowder. I took the lit match and placed it under the cave wall to burn the edge. Strange things happened. The edge of the cave wall was indeed ignited, but the flames extinguished in the next second, and did not spread to the entire building like a fire snake. I stood up, took a few steps back, and looked at the house in front of me. The house is very old, if I have to say, it is a building from the last century. There are exterior walls made of mud mixed with stone, and roofs made of rice straw and other crops wrapped in mud. If there were no anomalies just discovered, the house in front of you would be just like the real thing. Ruohong said on the side, "Legend has it that paper makers used to live in groups. They would have a village, and all the paper makers lived in the village, but I have never heard that the houses in the village of paper makers still need paper to tie them up." Wu 11 nodded and echoed, "Yes. My grandpa also told me about this situation. What paper makers fear most is fire, but as we just saw, the flames cannot ignite the house at all." The flames really couldn't ignite the entire house, only damage it? After listening to what the two people said, I nodded and said to a few people, "We have already come here anyway. Let's get ready. Let's go to the tomb." Everyone nodded. Xia 11 also woke up from her coma at this time. She opened the door and walked into the yard. The first thing she did was come to me and apologize. "Lu Su, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." It seems that Xia 11 still retained her consciousness when she was penetrated by Qing Yang Evil Star. I smiled at her and said, "As long as you're fine." Painted Skin Ghost stood up, came to the front door, and said to me, "My dear nephew, let's find the entrance to the tomb first, and then carry the coffin." I nodded and followed Painted Skin Ghost. Also going together were Ruohong and Xia 11. Wu 11 and his fellow juniors were all waiting in the courtyard. With the lessons learned before, I can no longer be separated from Xia 11. If something strange happens, I can protect Xia 11 as soon as possible. When you walk out of the yard, you will see a narrow country alley. I hesitated, took out Jingxiao, and stabbed towards the wall on one side. With a pop, Jingxiao disappeared into the wall. Sure enough, it was made of paper. When I pulled out Jingxiao, the paper-covered wall slowly healed like a wound. What happened before me has overturned my understanding. Walls made of paper are not afraid of fire and will heal themselves. This can no longer be described as strange, only weird. I looked at Painted Skin Ghost's back, hesitated and asked, "Second uncle, what is the situation in this village?" I think you should have some idea, right? I wanted to get some information about this village from Painted Skin Ghost's mouth, so that I wouldn't know anything about this place. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanba. Chapter 159. The painted-skinned ghost paused, turned to look at me, opened his mouth and said hesitantly, "This village is a village of grave keepers. The tomb keeper is the highest authority of the tomb. The grave keepers are mostly lonely old people who are far away from the family. In my impression, this type of people are silent and thin, wearing black clothes and black trousers. Maybe they have been absorbing the morning mist and sunset in the cemetery for a long time, which always gives people a feeling of gloom. But this is the first time I have heard of the tomb keeper's village. Is it possible that the whole village is guarding that big tomb?" I asked again, "But why is this village made of paper? This is what I can't understand the most. Gravekeepers and paper makers are two different professions, right? How could these two be connected?" Painted Skin Ghost shook his head, indicating that he didn't know either. Since Painted Skin Ghost didn't want to talk, I didn't continue to ask. The whole village was deathly silent, and the doors of every house were locked. What made people feel strange was that the doors were not locked from the outside, but from the inside. As Ruo Hung said, the whole village is very strange, as if someone has always been inhabited. As I walked, I picked up a handful of weeds on the ground, put them in my hands, and looked at them carefully under the moonlight. After my closer inspection, I can confirm that this weed is also made of paper. This means that every plant, tree, and brick in the entire village is made of paper. What kind of person can build such an uncanny building by hand? While I was amazed, I also felt deep fear. Because everything here seems so weird. After coming out of the narrow alley, the view becomes wider. On both sides of the road are small mud houses with locked doors. On the mud walls, unknown green vines are wrapped around them. As I walked, my steps stagnated, and a strange feeling suddenly arose in my heart. At this moment, the corner of my clothes was pulled by someone. I turned around and saw that it was Xia 11. She gently pulled the corner of my clothes and whispered in my ear, "Lu Su, do you feel like someone is staring at us?" As soon as these words came out, I immediately froze on the spot. Thinking back to the strange feeling in my heart just now, wasn't it the feeling of being spied on? Ruo Hung's pretty face turned a little ugly, and it was obvious that she felt the same way as us. The painted skin ghost saw a few of us standing there stunned, and urged, "Let's go." "Why are we standing there dumbly?" I nodded and quickly followed. Painted Skin Ghost took us into a small alley again. In this village, there are many such small alleys, which are complicated and difficult to walk. Walking there feels like walking in a maze, and people with poor sense of direction may get lost. As we passed a door, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I hesitated slightly and looked at a wooden door beside me. The wooden door is not big, but it is very worn and mottled, covered with moss and mold. Logically speaking, if the entire village was really made of paper, it would not take long for it to collapse. Not only did this village not collapse, but moss grew on it. I don't know what kind of existence this village is. Just when I was about to retract my gaze, the feeling of being spied on became stronger. I frowned and looked at the wooden door again. The moonlight penetrated the crack in the door, and through the bright moonlight, I actually saw a pale human face. And my eyes just met the eyes on that person's face. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanba. Chapter 160. The face was extremely pale and bloodless, and the eyes were dull and numb, without any emotion. When I met his eyes, the face quickly disappeared into the darkness, leaving only a black hole in the crack of the door. Sia 11 saw me staring blankly at the wooden door and asked, "What are you looking at?" I turned around, shook my head, and replied, "No. It's nothing." Painted Skin Ghost continued to lead the way, while my attention was focused on the wooden doors on both sides. The wooden doors of every house were open to a crack. As long as you look carefully, you can see pale faces pressed against the cracks in the door, their eyes numb, staring at us with cold expressions, which is extremely weird. They have no intention of attacking us for the time being. Since they don't, I'll just pretend they didn't see it. Continuing to follow Painted Skin Ghost, after passing a corner, our sight suddenly opened up again, and a huge locust tree appeared in front of us. The main branches of the locust tree are so thick that even if 7 or 8 adults surround it, they may not be able to measure it. The trunk is divided into countless large branches, and the branches are divided into densely packed small branches. The whole locust tree has lush leaves and blocks out the sky and the sun. Painted Skin Ghost pointed at the huge locust tree and said, "The entrance to the ancient tomb is right there." "The entrance to the ancient tomb is among the locust trees?" I came to the locust tree, stretched out my hand, and stroked the uneven main trunk. I can clearly feel the yin energy contained in this big locust tree. I turned around and asked, "Then how can we find the entrance to the ancient tomb?" Painted Skin Ghost grinned and said, "It's very simple. Walk around the locust tree 3 times clockwise, 2 times counterclockwise, and then 5 times clockwise. The entrance to the ancient tomb will naturally appear." I nodded and said to everyone, "Let's go back first and call Wu 11 and others." Ruo Hung nodded and we returned the way we came. My attention is still on the wooden door. The pale faces were still staring at us closely. We returned to the deserted courtyard and told everyone the location of the entrance to the ancient tomb. Wu 11 stood up and shouted to everyone, "It's time to work." The coffin bearers stood up, some patted the soil on their bodies, and some blew their pipes, then came to the 2 coffins and prepared to carry them. Wu 11 yelled and raised the coffin. The coffin was lifted again. I took Wu 11 and others to the big locust tree. Although the Xiao Hutong in the village is narrow, it is just big enough for the coffin to pass through. We were walking on a winding country road. I looked at the wooden doors on both sides of me and frowned instantly. This seems a little different from when I first came here. I tiptoed to the wooden door, stretched out my hand, and tentatively pushed the wooden door open. Squeak! The wooden door slowly opened, but I froze on the spot. These wooden doors were locked before. Now I can actually push it away. A bad premonition suddenly came into my heart. I asked everyone to hurry up and not stay here for a long time. Soon, we came to the huge locust tree. What we have to do now is to open the door to the cemetery the way Painted Skin Ghost did. I secretly came to Wu 11 and whispered in his ear, "Please be careful later, I always feel that something is going to happen." Wu 11 was stunned for a moment and nodded. I glanced at Painted Skin Ghost and said, "Second uncle, I'll start leaving." Painted Skin Ghost nodded. I took a deep breath and came to the big locust tree. I looked at the thick trunk and my eyes became more solemn. I walked 3 times clockwise around the big locust tree. Nothing much happens. Then I walked counterclockwise twice, and still nothing happened. But when I walked clockwise again, something strange happened.